How do you make your seller financing easier? Stand by. Well, welcome to this week's edition of Note School TV. And well, it is episode 213. And well, today is like no other. We have amazing guests today, and we'll get to them in just a minute. Before we do, we'll do a little house cleaning. Number one, make sure and like this episode. Yep, make sure and like this episode. And thanks to all of you, by the way, who attended Note Expo and got to meet a lot of you, see you face to face, and you had nothing but great things to say about Note School and Note School TV. So thank you for that. So please continue to like and share these episodes with others. And then number two, if you haven't already subscribed to Note School TV, to our Note School TV channel, just go ahead and do that. And number three, hit that bell notification. Yep, go ahead, Bing, so that you will be notified every Wednesday right before we go live. When? At 11:05 Central Time. Again, 11:05 Central Time on Wednesdays. Also, if you'd like to know more about what we do at Note School, simply go to noteschool.com/TV. Again, noteschool.com/TV. And now I want to go ahead and bring on our Chief Visionary Officer, our Note School founder, our fearless leader, my friend, Mr. Eddie Speed.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. As you said, we had a terrific time last week at Note Expo. We have our guests today. They were with us at Note Expo, and we're going to talk about Note Expo a little bit, but certainly it was a great event. We were so thrilled to get to see everybody. We are very excited about the trajectory of the industry and everything that we were really able to talk about. And today we're going to talk about a dimension, Joe, of how, if you're seller financing your property, how can you make it easier? And I think our guest has some insights on that.
I think they do. So I'm going to drop off, let you get to it, and I'll see you at the end of the show.
All right. Our guests today are people that we really, really respect and have a great relationship with. I know that in our business, our operational side of the business, our colonial side of the business, they have come with us with a really big impact. And we're going to talk a little bit today about how they can help other real estate investors do that as well, and some of the mechanical things that they do that I think are not necessarily normal in the marketplace. And we just realized that, maybe it would be a great value if you're selling your rentals, or if you're a full-time real estate investor and you're creating seller financing to see that. So Megan and David, you guys come hang out with us and just tell us the story of what you guys do. We're so glad to have you guys today.
Eddie, good to see you again, sir. Great event. We were so happy to be down there. We always love coming down to Texas and Dallas, but man, just before we even get started, what a great event.
Yeah, what a turnout you had.
I know, we were shocked. We had been to, Note School and a couple of the other smaller events, but this one was amazing. We were excited. It was awesome.
Well, Note Expo is about 13 years old, and it was our mission when we started to really have an industry spot where we had real industry people speaking about the right things in the business. And so we had a lot of speakers, as you know. Most of them were little short sessions, but we had a story, and it continued through from how to do the business the best is what sort of the theme of it was. And you guys were a part of that. And so let's talk a little bit. You guys' day job is you own Easy Title, Easy Closing. And I want you to describe to people what that is and why you really got into that.
Yeah, I'll start. Kind of the precursor to our title company was Easy REI Closings, which is essentially a nationwide transaction coordination service. So we're working with a lot of investors and wholesalers and flippers and buy and hold people, and basically just doing all of the paperwork, all of the back end side of the paperwork in their business, because most of them are like me, and they're don't laugh so quickly. Don't laugh so quickly.
They're all like you.
They're
Not
all,
most, but all of them.
Okay. The vast majority of them are like me, and just really terrible at that part of the business. Really great at talking and going out and making those deals, but the paperwork side of it is where I certainly and most wholesalers really struggle, because what do? We go out there and we find wacky deals. Yeah. And so that's how Easy REI Closing started about 4 years ago, and it's really grown tremendously. But then, one of the things that we realized, because we deal with 3,000 files a year, we deal with a lot of files, was that title companies are terrible. We kind of knew this, but we thought when we were doing 3,000 files a year, they would be nicer to us, and they're really not. They're terrible. So a couple of years ago, we went to Megan, who runs a very successful title company here in Tennessee, and coaxed her to come over and help us open Easy Title and Escrow, with the original intention of that title company just being a exclusive for our clients. And then after talking to you and people on your team, we realized that notes were just a natural extension of that. So we've for the last year been doing a lot of work with you, and we love it.
Yeah. So we have a very unique scenario that we do with you guys on the note side. There's a lot of operational things. It might not necessarily be everybody that has one little note. That's not really what you're wired up for. But let me go back. Let me paint a picture, guys, and then I want you to kind of jump on this, right? Yeah. The guy founded Homevestors even before it was a legal franchise. His name was Ken D'Angelo. I became friends with him in the 80s, and around 1990, he calls me and he says, "Eddie, I'm going to build a franchise for people to buy houses, and it's going to be called Homevestors." Right? This Dallas guy. One of the very first things that we did was we had a title company relationship where we could control the closings. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then I developed the note system for Homevestors, how to structure a note, how to underwrite the note, like what qualification standards. Think in terms of, I took seller financing and pasted mortgage banking over the top of it. Mm-hmm. Right. And one of the things, Megan, that I did, and I think you can totally relate to this, is I said, people do seller financing and they do a bunch of homemade documents and they kind of think it's cute, right? Yeah. They kind of think it's really cool, but they don't understand that they diminish the value of their note for me to go take their paper and go move it to an insurance company or to banks or to certain marketplaces. And so I said, I want to control the environment where their paper looks just like a mortgage banker, right? Don't make it. I don't want homemade. I don't want land contracts. I don't want a bunch of stuff. People somehow kind of think that's really clever, and it's not.
It's right? The worst. And we with contracts, and one of the reasons we like working with you guys is everything is very streamlined and consistent, and the paperwork is very good. But that is something that's happened to our industry is people want to be cutesy and put in these dopey clauses, and they think they're being and it's like every person they want to just keep changing it and putting on their own little flair. And when you do that, you're really just diminishing the quality of the paperwork.
I think it's also a misconception that title's going to give you an opinion on it. So I'm here to execute what you tell me to execute. I'm a disinterested party. So working with Colonial, it's nice because obviously we know the quality of what we're executing. We don't have these issues come back. Mm-hmm. But I think that, we're talking about these little one-off note. If you don't have the advice, you don't know what you're doing. I, as the title agent, cannot tell you, hey, did you realize that you forgot this piece of paper? That is not what we're here to do. So it's a misconception that title will kind of guide you through it. That is not what we're here to do. We're here to execute what you tell us to.
You're not in the coaching business, are you?
No, we don't want to be in that business. There's enough of
so I think a lot of people don't know that. That's a great point, Megan. I really appreciate your saying that. So here's my vision. I like to work with real estate investors and show them the path.
Right.
These are good properties to seller finance, right? there are properties that aren't good candidates for seller financing. Hey, there's some land gurus out there that are teaching people that to go buy kind of sand lots in Arizona or swamp lots in Florida. And Megan, you can never do anything with it.
Yeah.
Right. You can't put a septic on it. You can't get water. You can't get utilities. What would you do with it? Well, the joke is I'll put salt and pepper on it and eat it. Right. and so I'm a fan of working on property that I like to say that property that the buyer that's buying it with seller financing, that property is going to fulfill their dreams, whether it's land or whether it's a house. It's first of all going to fulfill their dreams.
Right.
It's going to be what was good for them, not what they look back and think wasn't so good for them. Right. So you start out with good property, and then you start out with finding the right buyer. You know, mortgage banking is so tight, you know, that the market's been left behind. Right. And there's so many people that really are deserving buyers. So then we want to help them structure the loan. And then we get down to that they're going to work with an RMLO. Right. Now, I'm going to say this, guys. All RMLOs are not equal.
No.
Because we look at their handiwork. We look at loans that have been created. And let me just tell you something. If the income that you're basing their qualification on is only on the app and you can't prove it, well, they used to call that back in the day, David, liar loans, right?
Yes, exactly.
So anyway, there's different levels of quality. And so I like to pull this group of vendors together. And part of it is I love working with you guys because, Megan, I can say to you, don't write some land contract kind of thing, because probably the person doing it has just been told that, but that's not, well, let's just be honest about it. They haven't bought 50,000 notes.
Sure.
Right. So let's do it. Let's do it tight. Let's look like a mortgage banker and do Fannie, Freddie, docs, do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I want you guys to talk about Airtable and how cool of a tool this is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have Airtable actually started with the transaction side. We wanted transparency with, hey, can you understand what's going on with your deals at any point? Can this investor, the wholesaler, log in? They have current TC notes. They have all their documents uploaded. The portal's incredible, which is what sets the closing or the transactions company apart from any other transactions company. Well, when you were coming on, we knew immediately you guys were talking about, you know, we had so many notes we were working on. And I definitely we have title equipment, Qualia, which I love what we do. It wasn't going to offer what you guys needed. So we decided to kind of merge the two ideas. And so we ended up bringing Airtable over to title and saying, hey, we're going to create, and for you guys, we created a whole your own. And it ended up being this way for not only we can look at every file, we could look at every package. You actively see the notes that are occurring. Your team's actively putting in things that they're doing. Our team is able to show you, hey, this is the uploaded file. Here's the execution. Here's the days the wires came in. And it's real-time communication. So you're not having to pick up that phone and say, Megan, did someone send this wire? You just get to go in there and you see everything's been done, and it's streamlined. David is always preaching about condensing timeline. And I'm so proud. I told David, you know, we started with some goals working with you guys, and we've already, you know, reached one of them. And we're just working every day to condense that timeline more and more. So when someone wants to buy a note, you're going to do so quicker than anyone else in the nation when working with this team. Well,
and the thing about it is this. Airtable, I'm not going to say it's blockchain. It's not the same as blockchain, but it conceptually is the same. It's where you house all the information.
Right.
And so if we're working with, if we have a real estate investor that's a client of ours, or a real estate investor that's a client of yours, but yet they want to create the right kind of notes and we can help them with that. Then all of a sudden, Megan, if we plug them into a third-party RMLO, then those documents can end up in Airtable, and now they're in a common place where it's all kind of put together. Now, you're not reviewing the RMLO documents. That's not your functionality, but it now all of a sudden lets all of this stuff land in one spot, and now all of a sudden you can see the level of organization, and it's pretty dang cool because somebody can go look at a grid on Airtable and see what's in and what's out and what's lacking and what's not. And it's a level of organization that I don't see other title companies have.
Well, data is king. That's like at the end of the day, we're going to go back to the data. And even just like the communication of, hey, when was this addressed? When was this asked of us? Like you're going back and there's timestamps. Everything is there. The other thing, which I know you're alluding to, is like we integrate very well in other programs. So it has a lot of APIs. Like talking to some of the vendors you suggested, we are going to look at that ability to let their information flow into our program. Again, not really something that I'm looking at origination, but if their origination needs to come in for your students, I will, it's going to process through our program, which is nice, like your clients get everything all in one.
Yeah, so it's a great centralized hub for communication, right?
Mm-hmm. For you to draw loan documents, you got to know the terms of the note. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Names, addresses, dates, rates, default rates, all of these things, right? Guess what you need to board a loan at a servicer?
The same things.
You got it.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I know you referenced a little bit earlier about, these newer people. I always like to say someone goes onto a podcast and hears it. Like the first time they hear it, they're like, oh, I can do this. And they do so without originators and again, I'm here to execute your document. So it's the same kind of thing. Like they know they need this information, but even then, what's the next step? What do they do with it? Because, there's so much nuance to any type of transaction. If it's a land all of these little nuances that the title company cannot kind of preach you or teach you through. And even though all the information comes into Airtable, what you do with it takes some expertise. And I like that we're all getting to use it in our areas. You have the originators now coming in, your team coming in, because I can look at your Airtable. I could tell you, Eddie, I don't know what half that stuff means. I look at y'all's calculations when I'm so impressed, but couldn't tell you what any of it is doing.
Yeah. I think that's an important point that both you made. Like, there is a lot of information out there on YouTube and Instagram and all of the things in the podcast, but putting it all together, right? Where everything that you guys do, certainly would struggle without us, and we couldn't